ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast, good to be with you. It is 5 minutes past 1. Coming up this afternoon, we're going to take a look at Queensland's coat of arms. If you can answer the question about what exactly is on Queensland's coat of arms and what about it has changed recently, I'd love to hear from you because you're going to hear about Cloudland, the Queen, our coat of arms and Caboolture, and why you might want to visit a certain village in the not-too-distant future.
You're listening to Cat Feeney on ABC Radio Brisbane and Queensland.
South East Queensland had a very important guest visitor in the 70s.
Is the capital of the Queen State of Australia, which was named by your great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. Therefore, we in this state have a deep affinity with you and your family. You will have seen by the welcome extended to you by the people of Brisbane during your drive and walk through this city streets that you are held in the highest of esteem, and in this, your 25th year as the reigning monarch, there can be no question that you are the most popular sovereign this country has had.
Your generous remarks have given me a great deal of pleasure. Thank you very much for them. I find it difficult to believe that it is 23 years since we first came here together. Much has changed since then, but what has not changed is the warmth and loyalty of the people of Brisbane. Their welcome today, which glowed in spite of the weather, will always remain amongst our happiest memories.
Her Majesty the Queen on a visit to Brisbane in 1977. She talked about change there. Well, there was quite a bit of change relating to Queensland at that time. Peter Racy is the Director of Collections for the 35th anniversary of the Expo 88 People's Committee. And Pete, you've got a bit of a story about the Queen, the coat of arms and Cloudland to share. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Catherine, and good afternoon, listeners. And yes, this is a very interesting connect the dots narrative. And it starts out with an import into Queensland from Canberra, James McCormack. And James was the chief protagonist to get a World Expo for 88, but he also was the architect that designed the Welcome to City statement, which was a rotary fountain down the valley, which people of my vintage will remember as a fountain that sprayed water if the winds were blowing out to the bay as you drove into the city and and if the winds were blowing from the bay, you used to wash your car as you drove out Ann Street. And it was an amazing fountain, and the sculptor of that was a fellow by the name of Colin Blumston, and he was a master craftsman in timber work, but he was also a general sculptor, and he produced the Brisbane City coat of arms, which was brought into being in 1926. Mm-hmm. And he had a really excellent reputation as a master craftsman. And so when Joe introduced or badged or refurbished the Queensland coat of arms for the Queen's visit in 1977, the person that the Queensland government felt was the most appropriate person to produce the very first reproduced coat of arms was Colin Blumston. And it was produced to go into the parliamentary annex, which was being built at that particular time in that sort of 1976 through to 79 period of time. And Colin produced the very first coat of arms, which was a fiberglass mock-up, which was then used to produce the very regal and beautifully crafted timber coat of arms, which is currently sitting in the parliamentary annex. and that very first coat of arms was made in fiberglass, and it was used as in the production in a router, a mechanical router, and that's sitting up in the Kingaroy Museum. Now, the third coat of arms that Colin produced is now in the possession of Caboolture Historical Village, and it itself is a beautiful and very interesting coat of arms, in as much as that it's a bit of fiberglass, it's a bit of timber, it's metal, it's a bit of welding rod, although in its painted format you would not actually know just exactly what it's made up of, but if you flip it over on its back, you can see just what how it's made up. And Colin was really appreciative of the refurbishment of the Brisbane coat of arms. It's now sitting up in Wickham Terrace, and so he's made this absolutely generous gift from his personal collection of the very first one that's gone into Kingaroy, and the second one which has gone into the Caboolture Historical Village. And these regional museums, I mean, they're really having a tough time, because with the COVID they were forced to close down. The volunteers have disappeared into the ether, and so Colin's generosity is really helping kickstart tourism back into these regional museums.
Peter Racy with you on ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast, telling you about a couple of good reasons to check out some really excellent museums that deal in local history at Kingaroy, at Caboolture. The latest additions being these coats of arms, the Queensland coats of arms that were updated in 1977 with a deer and a brolga, Peter, if I'm not mistaken, representing the old and the new. What's the connection, though, to Cloudland?
Well, so, I mean, the Premier, Joe Bjelke-Petersen, he never let grass grow under his feet. And so not only did he conceive as a way of bolting on, the monarchy into the day-to-day political life of Queensland, and that was part of the reason why he wanted the coat of arms updated, although the old one was very mundane, so any change, for whatever reason, would have been welcome, I suspect. But he, for the very first time ever, the Herald of Coat of Arms ventured into the Southern Hemisphere and was in attendance with the Queen at Cloudland when the Joe received the formal signing into being of this new coat of arms, which was then, sort of sprung into life, as I said, at the Parliamentary Annex, and then in courthouses and Queensland government buildings up and down the breadth of Queensland.
There you have it. So Cloudland gone, memories remain, and of course if you'd like to delve right into some marvellous memories of Queensland's not too distant past, why not consider a visit to the Caboolture Historical Village or the Kingaroy Museum. Peter Racy, thank you so much for the added incentive.
Great. Thanks again.
Peter Racy with you on ABC Radio Brisbane and Gold Coast. Time now for your musical memory.